this increasing conversation whether the young people have become heartless critics or are they truly aggrieved? What is your position on that? Because we heard even the Speaker of the National Assembly saying that Kenyans have become heartless. Because we've seen over time that when tragedy befalls a leader, there seems to be some level of celebration online. In fact, today there's a send-off of former MP for Kasipul, Charles Ongondowere. Are the young people becoming heartless critics or are they genuinely aggrieved?
Trevor, thank you for the question. One, I think we must start from the standpoint that how best is our economy performing? The economic performance has got everything to do with how the young people are responding. Because you realize that when there is no opportunity, particularly right now, and then unemployment rate is soaring high up, we must also remember that in the 10 years of Kibaki, one of the things we experienced in the Kibakinomics was increased matriculation rate. So then we have got this huge youth bulge of young people who went to school but now can't find an opportunity. Again, in every democracy, the question of the promise of upward social mobility is embedded in the society. But these are young people who are realizing that they can't have half the opportunity that their own parents had. So then this heightened anxiety in the society. So the second thing is that how has the government communicated the situation we are in the last 2 years? For instance, by the time we were experiencing the anxieties around 2024 finance bill, part of what was bringing it was how the government had communicated the finance bill 2023 and how it was passed. So that today you look at the finance bill 2025 and you see the government has decided to become more compassionate in the way it is communicating the finance bill. So back to your question, are the young people heartless critics or they are genuinely concerned? I think there is a genuine concern on the direction of the economy. But that direction of the economy does not stem entirely from how this administration is managing the economy. It is the structural and historical failures or mistakes we had made in the course of our public finance management. Because when you look at the Auditor General report, for instance, of 2021, and both Auditor General and the Controller of Budget are telling you that over 1 trillion shillings did not hit the consolidated fund, but these were proceeds from syndicated loans. So then, as these loans are maturing, and some of them are maturing, multiple loans are maturing at the same time, it then means that government does not have the headroom to make necessary investment in the productive sectors of the economy like manufacturing and agriculture. When that is happening, the question of liquidity is equally greatly affected. Okay. So then it means that most of the young people, some struggling to set up families, some are having young families, are looking at their lives and they are worried. Okay. So I think that, yes, young people have got a genuine concern, but again, there is a question of young people celebrating when leaders are befallen with calamities. Yeah. I think then that still underscores how the young people feel that they are left out and left behind. So I think that, and I give credit to the CS Treasury, the way I think CS Mbadi has attempted to communicate this finance bill and even the restraint from members of parliament this time round is commendable. Okay. I think if we continue on that trajectory, then we will see young people equally being compassionate, not only towards their leaders, but towards their countries as well and towards one another. Okay. Yes.
Marende, does the economic pressure justify the seemingly lack of empathy from the young people?
I would not say the economic pressure. But the careless talk by our leaders. Are we not aware of the phrase, we sympathize and move on? And the young people are now saying online, we also sympathize with our leaders and move on. So the kind of careless talk that our leaders have engaged in for almost 2 years, the kind of extravagant expenditure that they have shown the public, when the same public they are showing this kind of extravagance are not having anything in their pockets. But then again, Trevor, to be the devil's advocate, there is this common phrase in this country, kwa ground vitu ni tofauti. yesterday I watched, and later in the day I'll be in Kasipul, how Ongondo Were was received in the Homa Bay County. And you would see a totally different population. So the kind of youth you interact with online are very different when you interact with them on the ground. So there is a different match. And what creates the difference? Now, Kidi has tried to allude to it. But then it's not just about the education levels. And I've always called it the elite youth. But then, save for the elite youth, the problem we have in this country is very elitist. Elitist to the very effect that we have youth and a population that is informed. Very, very informed. We are in the internet era. You can't just say whatever you wish and think it will go away. So Kenyans are very aware. They know whatever is happening and they would want solutions. So if we would attempt to solve these problems or be seen to be solving them, that would be a plus. But then we must also be seen to be involving these youth on decision making. Mm-hmm. You know, as a country, what are these decision making organs that youth sit on? The president has appointed an array of advisors. Mm-hmm. Who is this single youth who has been put in charge of the youth advisory? Now, we have a cabinet that has a youth. Is there any single youth agenda that he is allowed to talk about? Because that is a good attempt. He is speaking about youth issues. So we must be seen to be trying to solve the youth problems. As a country, we are not doing that. But then, most importantly, the kind of jobs we are creating, are they the kind of jobs that these educated youth want? Mm. Do they want to run away from this country to go and suffer in foreign countries? Mm. Do these youth want to do labor jobs? Are we creating a conducive environment for these elite and educated youth to do the kind of jobs they want? Are we providing that safe environment? I would be expecting to see some tax holidays for startups. That then would be a step to the right direction.
Boy, as a leadership coach, where do you think the problem is? Are Kenyans just heartless, or do they have genuine concerns and they're genuinely aggrieved?
Thank you very much, Trevor, for having me this morning. To look at this issue is very deep. It's not just an issue of the current regime. It's an issue that has been passed on from the previous regime. And we've reached a point where information, we're at information age, where youth get information firsthand. They also search this information. Secondly, every year we have 800,000 youth coming from the high school. Yeah. Where they're going next, they don't know. There's no placement. There's no any approach that helps them where they're going to go next. If you look at the previous years before, by the time a youth finishes university or college, they already know where they're being placed. But these youth now have been left alone. So there's one thing is they have information, they're frustrated, and there's a lot of anxiety. Number two, there's another generation that does not want to allow them to speak with them. This generation, especially the baby boomers, they're there to get keep. So they're talking at them, not with them. These youth are adults. Trevor, we must also be alive to the fact that this country independence was founded by the youth. Dedan Kimathi died at 29. Tom Mboya was a cabinet at 33. Now you're telling this same youth, where you're speaking at them, these adults, you're talking to them like children. You do not know what you're doing. This is where the problem is. Because now the frustrations are high, there are very many of them, and they're telling you, the few of you, we know where the problem is, but you cannot see it. So until we come down and say, can we talk, can we have a conversation? And let's not have this dialogue every year now and then we're having dialogues. Yeah. We have to reach a point whereby we are making instant solutions. These youth have been brought up with instant coffee, instant, everything is about instant. So if the government is not ready to give them those instant solutions, my friend, we are going into the wrong direction. Okay. Yes.
Well, Vinya, what do you think the issue is?
For me, I'll take a philosophical angle by looking at why are we here? What got us here? Because when we got independent, everybody knew that we are going to have a chance to develop and thrive in our country. No one wants to go abroad. I have studied abroad. I came back because I want to be part and parcel of developing and developed in this country. So from a scholarly perspective, you find that what is our education system doing for the young people? Is it making them to be reactive or proactive? Are they passive or progressive? Those are the questions that we need to do. And it's unfortunate that in countries like Kenya and entire Africa, mostly entire African countries, we are not keen on research. We don't ask why. We don't ask where and how can we solve these problems. So we are always reactive. We just react to a situation. Like right now, everybody is looking at why are youths like this? It's because there are no opportunities. People are coming back. People are being educated here. They even have PhD levels, but they don't have jobs. They don't have anything that they can say, actually, I am eating from my knowledge. So it makes us to question, what is our education giving us? Because the developed countries, they ensure their education system not only creates young people who are job seekers, but inventors and innovators. And we cannot do that if we don't have research. So we need to start talking about research. The other day when Mbadi, the CS for Finance, was having a conversation at DESTA, he spoke about it. We don't have research institutions. And without research, a country cannot have a policy plan. Developed nation, they have policy plans that give a trajectory up to 100 years from now. What do we do? For us, we're always reactive. And when we assuage that reactive program, it means that we will never solve anything. And youth will keep on rebelling and rebelling. So the youth are pained. They are pained because they have nothing to do. They were promised that once you go to school, education will give you access to a good life. What is our human development index? Do we interrogate that? Do we go to the ground and see how are the young people doing? How many people have this skill? Because whatever is being sold out to the young people currently is go abroad and do manual labor and skilled labor. What will happen to that person who decided, I am going to use my time and brain to get the best education in the world and come back, but still no opportunities for them. And we have so many of them. So that means that we need to solve that as a country. We need to interrogate our education system because we need to create a lot of inventors and innovators. That's how we will solve a lot of this pain. Otherwise, this pain will always be there on social media because that's the only platform they have to use to voice. Yeah.
And Nathaniel, you had mentioned from an insider's perspective in the government side, what do you guys think is the problem?
So first of all, not all the young people are heartless critics. There are those who are using the social media to vent out the frustration, the struggles they are going through, but not all young people. There are quite a lot of young people who want to be productive and gainfully engaged in their daily lives. And that's why the way we look at it is that young people, when there is a democratic expression of young people towards what is going on in the society, and even particularly towards government initiatives and programs, we welcome it. If you look at all the governments that have come, it is this government that has a lot more young people in the decision-making bodies. If you look at, for example, Parliament, it is only UDA that has more young members of Parliament, and it was very deliberate to give tickets to more young leaders to be able to join Parliament and be able to make policies or laws that are supporting young people. And that's why we have 53 young members of Parliament in the Kenyan Parliament, and quite a majority of them, more than 30, are from UDA or the Kenya Kwanza Party. And this is very deliberate. coming to the other side, why young people are feeling frustrated is because there's a huge number of young people and we need to plan for them. And that's why the programs that I spoke to about earlier, for example, look at the current budget. And this current budget has a lot of proposals that are targeting the young people. For example, there is a reduction, a proposal to reduce the digital asset tax from 3% to 1.5%. This is very deliberate so that young people, the young people who are in the online space, they are being considered as an MSME, just like the other small businesses, so that there is no need of putting a lot of an additional tax pressure on them. That's why the Finance Bill 2025 has proposed to reduce the digital asset tax to 1.5. Now, secondly, if you look at the budget proposals that we've put in, for example, out of the 4 trillion budget proposal, we have 650 billion going towards education, and most of it is towards young people. Look at the TVET program. 5.2 billion is going towards the TVET program, and we know who are the beneficiaries of the TVET program. It's mostly the young people. If you look at HELB loan, we've proposed 40 billion to support higher education of the young people, and many other proposals that we've put in place in terms of the budget-making process.
But they're still frustrated.
And there is that way we are addressing this frustration. Mm-hmm. To come up with a solution, you need a bold reform. Mm-hmm. Because you cannot be doing the same thing the same way and you expect different results. That's why we've put in a lot of bold reforms. Some of them might not be popular, but eventually they will work out in terms of addressing some of these challenges, Trevor. For example, most of these conversations that are showing frustration started with the Finance Bill 2024. Yeah. The way we are communicating this Finance Bill, at that time, there was no adequate government communication on the proposals. For example, if you look at 2024 Finance Bill, there was a proposal to invest in the local production. And there was miscommunication on the issues of like sanitary towels, because we wanted to target that anybody who is investing in the sanitary towels should be able to be given a tax incentive. But it was taken out of context because there was miscommunication at the time. Right now, we are making it very clear that any tax proposal that is going towards encouraging local manufacturing is welcome. And we are very proactive in terms of this communication. Okay. And you've seen what the National Treasury is doing in that regard.
All right.
Trevor, respectfully,
yes.
What are these bold youth reforms? Because I've heard the term bold reforms. Yeah. If we would be enlightened, okay. What are these bold reforms?
Okay, then we'll come to that. You can ask what are the bold reforms. But Kidi, how do we resolve the situation? Because yes, it is true that the young people are frustrated, but does it justify the way they react? But also at the same time, how do you then bring them in so that it's a solution-oriented conversation? And the boy had said that it can't just be ordinary dialogue. So what are the solutions? How can this be fixed?
I think
so that we have a cohesive nation.
I think that because I have the good fortune of being on this panel with an official government, should I say spokesman, we must say that things don't go wrong. Yeah. Things start wrong. The democracy, the way it is designed, is that government does not have to give people everything. But government must give the people the impression, the feeling that we are in this together, we are fighting together to get to a better place. When our friends represented by Nathaniel came in, I think there was a lot of arrogance in how they were communicating government agenda. Because, for instance, Finance Bill 2023 and eventual Finance Act 2023 was operating from a very practical standpoint, that we had very little fiscal headroom and we needed money to then be able to run government and engage in capital expenditure. And so, while truth is the tax-raising measures of 2023 were justified, I don't think they were communicated with sufficient compassion. When you come to 2024, Finance Bill 2024 was trying to raise, I think, up to around 360 billion new taxes, new revenue. But then, because we failed to communicate sufficiently in 2023, and there was a lot of arrogance like itapita mpende msipende, so young people resisted these new taxes in 2024. But the other truth is, at the same time, the country had sovereign obligations that it needed to meet. So to be able to protect the country from sliding into a hole, then we had to go to the syndicated market, to the international market, to get other new loans to meet the obligations that we were unable to now meet as a consequence of the Gen Z revolution of 2024. So then I think that I still believe that government is the single most powerful tool of collective social progression. What now, the responsibility is now on the shoulders of our friends represented here by my good friend Nathaniel, that then they communicate the same with compassion.
Okay.
Young people of Kenya are not animals. They are human beings, and like every human being, they are also highly alert to their own self-interest. And their self-interest in this matter is that the assurance that their government cares.
Okay.
Thank you.
Victor, how can we create spaces for meaningful conversations about governance? I'm heading there because we're going to talk about a bit of politics. There seems to be an attempt on the political side to bring in the broad-based government. Even that seems to be crumbling in between. We'll talk about that shortly. But first, how can we create spaces for meaningful conversation about governance?
I think the government must first understand the era we are in, that we are struggling with a third liberation, and that is the economic revolution. So we've had our political revolution in this country, and we've gotten the multi-party, that I still have a feeling that we must protect dearly. We must be eternally vigilant. But then as we become eternally vigilant on the democratic gains that we've gained, the political freedoms and rights that we've gotten, we're now in the economic revolution era. Is there an attempt to give the young people of this country some economic freedom? And it doesn't just mean that the government must employ these youth. And the last time we were here, I was very clear on that. The government can only employ maybe just up to 1 million Kenyans. Now, the vacancies that fall every single year are not more than 80,000. So then, and we have several graduates. That is the skilled labor that we have. So the government cannot be the only solution in terms of employment. So the government can only create that meaningful environment for these young people then to get self-employed. But then as they get self-employed, are we welcoming investors? Is the environment very conducive for foreign investors to come so that they employ these youths? Because the private sector is the single biggest employer, save for the government. The government can't do the same amount of employment that the private sector does. But does the private sector feel comfortable in this country? Is the energy sector encouraging manufacturing industries to come up? Are our taxes favorable for foreign investors so that they can come in? Is our talent and entertainment environment? You know, we're in a country where even sport is not paying. You go to our neighboring country here, Tanzania, the kind of players, the kind of money those young players, those players earn in Tanzania is crazy. You come here, our players are crying of salaries alone, leave alone winning allowances. They have no proper accommodation. They are also accommodated in our slums. If we only did proper youth mobilization around our sports and talent, we would employ a good number of our youths. I'm encouraged by the upcoming stadium, Talanta Hela, in Hoodley. But after the stadium is complete, are we going to utilize it properly? Do we have enough sport academies in this country? I used to go and watch some plays sometime around town here at the Alliance Française, now at the theater, the National Theatre. It is no longer lucrative. Our youth are losing hope in single ventures that they can employ themselves in. Okay. When we watch our televisions today, what are these creative plays that we watch that mirror what were there in the past, like the famous plays by O.J. And we used to enjoy them. But much as we enjoyed them, our youth used to generate money from them. So let us encourage the creative industry, the sports industry, self-employment in itself.
Okay.
Then that would create a base for our youth.
Right.
Because I've heard Mungare speak,
Yeah.
and Mungare has made a point that they've invested in TVETs.
Yeah.
Post-TVET,
Then what?
Then what?
where is this kind of young man
Where they're
going to?
going, the placement.
So we must allow them to be placed somewhere
Okay.
after going to school.
All right, but Cliff, you had mentioned that this dialogue shouldn't just be dialogue. So how then can we create the spaces for meaningful conversations with the young people? Because even at the height of the Gen Z revolution or protest,
Yes.
they were asked to come to the table. They said, first we are leaderless, and then we are tribeless, and then we don't have any agenda to discuss. So how then do you have a meaningful conversation in an entire country where everybody reads from different scripts and different pages?
Trevor, I think what we have to understand that when the Gen Z went first to the street, the issue was not they were looking for a leader. They came with an agenda that this is what our problems are. And we needed you leaders to address these issues. So when the leaders now asking for leaders, it's like I'm coming to my parent, I'm asking, this is my problem. Can you address them? Then you ask me, who are your leaders? You're my leader. You are the leader. You are the appointed. The Gen Z are aware to the fact that you are the leaders who are appointed. Now they're not looking for any other leader outside that paradigm shift. However, when you're now throwing back the game to them, saying, who are your leader? That is old politics. Old politics where we have seen the same faces in the political system. The people who have created the problem trying again to come up and form a formation that they are the saviors of these Gen Zs. So the Gen Zs are saying, we do not want to see the same faces. And that is where the problem is. You cannot have dialogue with the same people who are creating the problem. So we must look at it in that way. If we're going to have dialogue, you have reached a seniority part where you can say, let's have solution, not dialogue. And that's where the Gen Z are coming up.
So even now you don't think that there's a space for conversation. It's about solutions to the issues that have been raised. But then even then there has to be some kind of a conversation. Or is that
but they've seen the conversation. They've seen the conversation all their lives.
Yeah.
They've grown up seeing conversation, dialogue this, dialogue that. All those reports are gaining dust in the shelves, in the archives. Can you go back and say, what were the problems that were discussed by this generation? What were the problems that were discussed by the next generation? Solve them, and then now come, let's move on together.
Yeah.
Yes.
So even now as we speak, then there's an arrangement for the broad-based government.
Yes.
Is that an attempt towards a solution, or is that just political mileage for the people who are politicians and not for the people?
Broad-based government is not an attempt to the solution, but it is a solution for now because of the current situation whereby 2 or 3 formations are deciding, you know what, the country is bigger than us. So we must come together. Instead of us politicking, come together. We understand that if we don't come together, then there will be a problem outside. So the opposition and the government have sat down and said, can we come and sit together instead of having those rivalry, competition kind of dialogue? Let's have a dialogue from one point of view. Then we can have a solution for them until their time comes. Yes.
Wavinya, this is interesting for me because I'm wondering then, how do you resolve these issues when even sitting together is a problem? Because the first question everybody will ask you is, who is on that table? And yet not everybody can talk at the same time. So how then do we have meaningful spaces for conversations on governance?
We need to take a historical angle on that, whereby we ask, why are we here? Because currently, the world is trying to, especially the continent, is trying to liberate itself economically. Why do we have economic challenges? Yet we are told through research that we have a lot of natural resources. So how do we translate what we have into meaningful development action? Are we having a national development conversation, or are we having a political conversation? Those are the key things that we need to start asking ourselves as young scholars and young Kenyans, because we have the information. We know where the problem is. Or if most of us don't know, we have the liberty to interrogate it from a critical perspective and ask, why are we suffering economically? And it is true, we need to liberate ourselves economically, because when you look at the politics of finance and money, Africa is subordinate in the international financial system. And this narrows down to everyday inequality that every Kenya youth and adult is facing in the current situation. So we need to ask, how did we go wrong? We got the flag independence. After that, why is our economic not translating to meaningful development? Why are we not having a rise in Human Development Index? So those are the conversations that we're supposed to have, not politics, because most of the time you find the conversation, they call us youths to have these conversations, but mostly you find it's political, or someone is trying to get into their interest into this conversation because they have an agenda. But as youths, we need to have our agenda, because youths have always, through history, been able to change systems that don't work, and they've ensured that they work. That's why we are no longer colonized, and we have our independence. But what independence is it? Is it only physical? Does it have the economic connotation to it? Those are the questions that we should critically ask and understand. Why do we have all this debt? Because if we have 68% of debt to the GDP, it means that our development agenda is already swallowed. We will need to pay our expenditures. What about our development agenda? So those are the things that we should have, and there should be an intergenerational dialogue. Let's not fight. We are past the fighting. Let's now call the leaders into it, the people who are taking care of this nation. Let's have a conversation. Let's have a meaningful conversation, because it is through dialogue that systems get to change. It's through dialogue that people get to understand, oh, this is what we need to do, and this is how we make people actually actualize, because everybody wants to self-actualize. No one wants just to say, I was a statistic, I was a Kenya, I lived. No, you want to live a meaningful life that transition to development and economic empowerment. So we need to start having those conversations. We need to interrogate our history. Yeah. Why are we here? We need to interrogate the politics of money and finance. Who actually finances this? Who are our financiers? Who are the people behind everything that is happening in this country and the continent? Those are the conversations we need to start having. Yeah. And then from there, we will be able to liberate ourselves economically. Okay. Because you can only liberate yourself from a point of knowledge.
Yeah. And yes. Nathaniel, you know, what I'm struggling with here is the how. Because initially you would have thought that maybe the elected representatives who represent the people then would be at the forefront.